All right, this is the Covert Instruments Replicant. It is a mold and cast platform, and I'm going to take you through molding and casting a key. So this is everything that comes with the platform. There are 10 ingots of metal, some Sculpey clay, and the platform itself. So if we go ahead and take this apart, we'll take a look at all the contents. You have your retention band, your spoon, your outer housing, which is 2 pieces, and then you have your roller, and you have your inner housing. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get this inner housing set up for molding. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our Sculpey, and it's divided into 4 pieces, and it'll take about 3/4 of a single piece to fill out each side. So I already have here a pre-proportioned brick, and I'm going to split this in half. And I'm going to work it into the rough shape of the housing, and we'll put it in. Now, you want to press it down, but you don't want to press it down below the level of the clamshell. And then I will do the same for both sides. Just like that. So at this point we have clay on both sides. Now it needs to be flattened. So we will take our roller, we will roll it away, and that will shear off some excess that spills over the sides. And we're almost there, so we need to give it another pass. There we go, and that's getting pretty flat. We'll give it one more. All right, and then with all this excess, we can take the edge of our spoon, chop it right off, and we'll do that for both sides. There we go. Once again, take the spoon, chop off the excess. So now we have 2 flattened pieces of clay that fully encapsulate the interior. Now, in order to set this up, you will need to get yourself some baby powder, because the roller functions as a housing for your baby powder, which is used as a release agent. And what this is meant to do is we sprinkle a little bit on both sides, like that. Close this back up. And then we're going to use our finger to just spread this out. And this will prevent the 2 halves of clay from sticking to each other. Just like that. Now, I like to take my thumb and I like to press in and wipe away some clay, like this, offset to one side. So in this case, I offset to the bottom half. We'll do that to both sides. There we go. Now, we can close up our clamshell, and this can be stored inside the exterior housing. And this is ready to be used. So let's get a lock. In this case, we'll be using a padlock that uses a dimple key. And we will be casting the key. So to do that, we will take out our inner mold, release the 2 halves, and we will take our key. And I like to put the key in. Now, we're not pressing the key into the clay yet. We're just holding it lightly. And then we are going to enclose the key inside the clay. And we will actually use the outer housing to compress the clay and keep the 2 halves shut. So at this point, we have the key in the clay. And it's very important that when you're closing these 2 halves, you're not pushing on the key. That will ruin the imprint of the key inside of the clay. After we've let that sit for about 10 to 20 seconds, we can then open up the outer housing, being careful not to bump the key, and we can open our mold. And there we can see the 1 half of the key, and we will very lightly rock the key back and forth just to try and get it to separate as cleanly as possible. There we go. Now we can return the key. At this point, we have the 2 impressions on either half of the clamshell, and we are going to use the bottom pointy end of our spoon to draw an air escape valve or channel. What that's going to look like is something like that. I'll just clean this up a little bit. There we go. And what this is going to allow us to do is when we pour the molten metal in, it will give some place for the clay or the air entrapped to escape. At this point, we can close this up and place it back into our housing. And that's what it should look like. We can see our air escape right there and the main molding of the key. The next step is we will take our spoon, and there is a slot in the roller that this will fit into. We will then take a unit of our metal, and we will grab our lighter. The unit is designed to fit a Bic Mini, which you can find at many convenience stores or online. And we're going to start melting the clay. Now, it's important that you hold the roller and not the spoon, because the spoon will obviously heat up, and you do not want to inhale the fumes that come off of the melting process. So as you can see, the metal is starting to melt. I'm going to jostle it just a little bit, just to encourage it to fully melt. And once it's fully melted, the entire surface should be liquid, right about there. And once it's fully melted, we're going to give it another 10 to 15 seconds of heat, because the metal on the top is not quite hot enough, and it's the first that gets poured. And if it's not fully heated, it will solidify too soon and cause you to have a bad cast. So at this point, it's been about 10 to 15 seconds that the liquid has been fully melted. So we are going to carefully pour it into the mold. Give it a little tap, and that should be good. Now, this key is going to take about 2 to 5 minutes to fully set up. So rather than waiting, I've prepared a swap. So we'll put this to the side. And after 2 to 5 minutes have expired, you should be able to crack your mold open, and it'll look something like this. So we can see the key has been cast, and we can also see where some of that liquid metal has gone down the air escape. That's exactly what we want, so that we get a nice clean cast. Now, if you have any ghosting or any edges or imperfections in the key bitting itself, you can use the edge of the spoon, which has a finely serrated edge, to file that down if you need to. In this case, we're going to try the key on the lock. And it works. All right, so now that we have a working key, let's go ahead and reassemble everything. Actually, let's take a look at this one first. It's been about a minute. It might not be fully set up yet, but we'll go ahead and take a peek. There we go. So I cracked this one a little bit early. You can see the metal's a little bit shiny looking. That means it hasn't fully set. So we'll set this aside, but we're gonna go ahead and reassemble our replicant. So the first thing that goes in is the interior shell. We will then take our roller and put it in place. We will close the 2 halves, all right? And then we will take our spoon, which will go on top, like that. And then we will grab our lighter and our band. And the system is assembled. So now you can store this in your bag, and whenever you're ready to use it, it's deployable.